Hey rockers, back yet again for another tale from the past. Yep, going back tonight at about 3:30 in the morning here in Southern Oregon. Yeah, it's late night, man, early morning here. I'm a night owl, what can I say? We're gonna go back to Bloomington-Normal, Illinois. Yeah, Bloomington, Illinois. The date is July 18th, 2003. And we're going to talk about someone controversial tonight, or I should say, used to be at least controversial. The thing is, he was the singer for the band Pantera, the band Down, and SUPERJOINT Ritual. And in 2016, he issued a video, or was caught on video, saying some things that were considered not nice and actually, racist. The guy spent years, however, begging the metal community for forgiveness. He issued apologies. I did some research. I've been learning my lesson, my friends. I have. And I did some research. And a lot of friends of Phil Anselmo that have known him for decades say the guy is actually compassionate. And that, yes, at times he can be insensitive, but he's definitely not racist, is what almost all of them say. So I'm kind of going with the forgiveness thing, and like, he screwed up. He was an angry man using a lot of alcohol in those days. Like I say, this story goes back to 2003. So it's when he's singing for the band SUPERJOINT Ritual. And they're performing in Bloomington, Illinois at the Lafayette Club. And I was working full-time at WIHN Rock. Actually, it was 96.7 iRock radio. I was on the 6 to midnight shift on the radio broadcasting, hosting a show called The Church of Rock, which I'm still hosting on Sunday nights on KSKQ these days. But I was given the job of going to interview Phil Anselmo, which was like, oh, please not that. I loved the perks of being a radio DJ. It was a lot of fun. But I tell you, man, about a week before the show, there was a guy that came into the radio station, and he was a friend of mine and still is, so I won't say his name to protect the guilty. But he had a little case. And there was like a little anvil carrying case that singers carry their microphones in. It's padded and, it would hold in like smells and protect things. But this guy had about 10 different flavors of some of the best smoke I had ever seen in my life, with some of the best smells and potency levels I'd ever witnessed. I remember one night in particular trading a good chunk of my vinyl record collection to this guy for some of that there herb. And I got some great stuff, but I couldn't get the stuff that I really wanted. One of the strains that he had in that box was called Wheelchair. Yep, he literally said, "This stuff will cripple you." I was like, I gotta have some, but I couldn't afford it. But about a week later, I get sent by John Norton from WIHN Radio in Bloomington. Shout out to John. I got to say, he's a great guy, man. I get to the bus, and I show up at the same time as Dean Peterson and one of the other executives from the sales department at our radio station. They're kind of in their suit and tie mode because they're more business oriented. We're on the clock. I'm being sent to do the interview, and then I have to go back to the station to edit the interview and get it on the air and then stay on the radio until midnight. I don't even know what time it was that I got there, maybe 4 o'clock, something like that in the afternoon, maybe 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, I don't remember. But I get to the bus, and Dean and the other guys there, and we smell the most pungent, strong smelling weed smell coming off the bus. It was like freaking Cheech and Chong, man. And I was like, yeah, what are we getting into here? Well, believe it or not, what are the odds that when that door opened, out came the same guy that was carrying around the little anvil carrying case with the smoke, who had the expensive wheelchair stuff that I couldn't afford, walks off the bus, starts laughing, the smoke's rolling out of the place, and he goes, "I just sold 2 ounces of weed to Phil Anselmo." I'm like, "What kind?" He goes, "The wheelchair." I'm like, no way. So I get on the bus with the studio executives, the radio execs, and I see the guys in the band. And the band is made up of Hank Williams III on bass guitar. And I was like, yeah, Hank. So I got to meet Hank. He was super cool, but quiet. Reserved, I should say. Not a bad thing to be. I love all the Hank Williamses, Hank Sr. and Jr., by the way, and there's a Hank 4 now, too. But I'm a big fan of Hank 3. So that was cool. And also, I think Pepper Keenan from COC, Corrosion of Conformity, was on the bus that day too, for some reason. But the other guys in the band were, of course, Jimmy Bauer on rhythm guitar, Kevin Bond on lead guitar, and Joe Fazio on drums. They all treated me nice. About 5 minutes later, Phil comes walking out of the bedroom. He's got this really, deep voice that Phil's known for, really intimidating kind of dude. Kind of intimidating guy, but very pleasant, very cool to me. Was happy to do the interview. It was, definitely like a bro, like a friend. And this guy walked out of the room, and he had a girl with him that would look pretty young. No judgments here. But she went back in the room and kind of disappeared. He came out, and not only did he fire up one doobie of that great wheelchair weed, but he fired up 4. Yeah, man, 4. Like what's that little Dracula guy's name? The Count on Sesame Street. 1, 2, 3, 4 doobies. It was crazy. I couldn't believe the tolerance level this guy had, because I'm telling you, one of those joints had me just woo. And I just like, you know what? If you're gonna send a rock DJ to be interview a rock star, and you've got to, you can't expect him not to partake in the rock style a little bit. And I thought, I'm gonna partake. Well, the studio guys decided we better not smoke on company time. They split. I'm like, I'm in like Flynn, man. So me and Phil are token up. I mean, like madmen. 4 doobies. It's just like, woo, me and him, not the other guys. I don't remember anyone else smoking. Maybe I'm wrong, but I remember mostly me and him. And I'd never been that blitzed, and I've been at it since 79 and still am, but never had it like that. It was like, wow. So we do the interview, and Phil's really cool, and everything I say, he's being cool to me. I ask him to name some of his favorite bands, and you'd be surprised, but some of the bands were diverse. The Smiths. Yeah, the Smiths. The Moody Blues. The Beatles. He said he liked Black Sabbath and Black Flag. Also, I asked Phil about playing the big giant stadium gigs compared to, say, the little clubs he was doing now. He said he hated the stadium gigs when he was with Pantera, playing with all the big national acts, because there was a huge division between the stage and the audience. 20 or so security guys dressed in yellow. You couldn't get close to the crowd or get the vibe going with the people. And he loved being back in clubs, and he said he really enjoyed it. Pantera had officially broken up at this point, and he confirmed it during the interview. And SUPERJOINT was full time. This was their tour called Lethal Dose. It was the Lethal Dose tour, and it was a few days before the Lethal Dose of American Hatred album came out. These guys have been described as sludge metal / hardcore, but Phil, he described the band as sounding like a violent sounding car wreck. That was very telling and funny. He was definitely humorous at times. And again, man, I can't stress how much that wheelchair crippled me. Yeah, man, it was really cool because when I got there, Phil handed me a couple packs of SUPERJOINT Ritual rolling papers, and that was awesome. I saved those for the longest time, and I ended up smoking rolling dubs out of one pack, and then I threw another one on eBay years later. Just, I don't know why, but I did. It was really cool to talk to the guys and hang out, of course, with Phil. These guys started back in 1993. I did not get to attend the show that night at the Lafayette Club, but I got to tell you, when Phil was talking to me, he seemed like he was pretty buzzed. And if you know what I mean, I think on something heavier than weed, perhaps, because he was known for that. But I got to say this, no judgments, because that guy had a crippling back pain, not just back pain, but a severe injury that doctors had been telling him for years, you should be in a wheelchair, literally, no pun intended, with the smoke. And he even told me, he goes, man, dude, I'm in pain all the time, and I don't even hang out after shows that often because I have to get back to resting my back. And he said if his doctors knew what he did for a living, they would freak, So hats off to him for being a hardcore dude. I heard the show was extremely energetic and really off the hook. I regret that I couldn't go, but I had to go back to work. I finished up my interview with Phil, and I tell you what, man, when I got back to the radio station, I had never in my life been to the point where I couldn't smoke and go on the air. Matter of fact, I enjoy that kind of thing. But you know what, man? I was crippled. I couldn't handle it. I was told to edit the interview and get it on the air, but instead, man, I literally put the show on what they call autoseg, and I did they called voice tracks, and I put them in for the rest of the night, and I drove home because I just was too, and I was okay to drive because you're just like focusing on one thing. But when you're like editing and answering phone calls and talking on a mic, I couldn't do it. I couldn't focus. I'm looking at the screen, making mistakes on the air. I'm like, oh my God. So I lasted about maybe an hour. And I thought to myself, I can't believe this. I've never been to where I cannot function. But again, you send a rock radio DJ that's got good ratings too, by the way, and not bragging, but I did. And you send a guy like me to go interview a guy like that. There's no way I'm walking off the bus if he's going to fire up some of the bad old wheelchair. Nope. I don't remember who opened up for them that night. Don't know the set list. I didn't go to the show. And I always have to look back at my notes to make sure that one thing he did say was, he goes, I can't believe I can even walk on my own. And that was pretty telling too, man. Like I say, this guy was in pain 24 hours a day, he said. He said it was very bad. So if he was high on anything higher, more than the wheelchair, I get it. Also, I understand why he smoked so much of it, because cannabis is a major painkiller too. So hats off to Phil. I really don't believe the guy's a racist. If I'm wrong, okay, look, I'm sorry. But I don't promote that kind of thing. I'm not a racist. And I'm just saying, I thought about not doing this video because I thought, oh man, people are going to not want to, subscribe perhaps, so they're going to maybe judge me. But nah, I gave the disclaimer, guys, and I'm being honest. So whatever Phil's up to now, let me know in the comment section, guys. If you're fans of Phil Anselmo, is he still rocking? I think he's doing something now, right? I know SUPERJOINT has reunited over the years. This is the fourth take I've done of this video. I had to reset my entire phone. So, man, I'm getting a little hoarse, but I hope you enjoyed the tale, and take a second, if you would, to go to the Church of Rock channel, because you can find this entire interview that I did with Phil Anselmo on my other channel. It's The Church of Rock, one word, and if you would subscribe there, I'd appreciate that a lot. And if you could subscribe to this channel, it helps me build it. And if you could maybe like this channel or this video and leave a comment. I always comment back to every single comment. And I'll be back soon with another tale of rock and roll debauchery and sin. Pathetic, huh? I've got some good ones, man, and I have some requests coming at me that I'm going to fulfill with some tales about some of my own gigs with Bloody Mess and the Scabs and whatnot, and some of the other mini bands that I've been in over the last 40 years. All right, man? Take care, guys. Rock and roll. Stay real. Cheers.